distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, our diaspora listeners, I'd like to say thank you for joining us on Equatorial Latitude Broadcasting Corporation, ELBC, 99.9. You can also get up on www.elbcradio.com, wherever part of the world you are. I'd like to invite the official spokesperson of the government of Liberia, Honorable Jerolinmek, Piah, who will introduce to you our guests for today's press briefing. Mr. Piah.
Welcome again, members of the press, to Charles Day on board for our regular MICAT press briefing. If you look around, you notice that we have some very important guests today. And key among the guests, which I know many of you journalists may know, is the resident coordinator of the United Nations system in Liberia, Madam Christine Jerolinmek. Correct, right? Good. I thought I would get her name wrong. And she's here with Deputy Minister for Budget, Tanneh Brunson, Assistant Minister for Development Planning, Wellington Bachu, and the three of them will speak to us, starting with the Deputy Minister for Budget, the Resident Coordinator, and then Assistant Minister Bachu. So we're changing the order today. We will allow the guests to be the ones to speak to us first, and after that, we will hear from the Ministry of Information. And for the Ministry of Information, the press conference today will be addressed by the Assistant Minister for Information Services, Mr. Matthew Yembu. So you are not going to hear from me today, you're not going to hear from Daniel Sano, you will hear from the Assistant Minister for Information Services. Having said that, let me invite to the podium the Deputy Minister for Budget. Madam Minister.
Good afternoon to all. Mr. Minister.
The Minister, sorry, I cut you, but I think I didn't do the proper thing. So you know the President announced the establishment of our National Steering Committee for the development of a new development agenda, which will be known as a REST Agenda for Inclusive Development. Her Excellency, Madam Jerolinmek was named as the co-chair for that National Steering Committee, hence the reason for which she's here.
Madam Omotome, Resident Coordinator for the UN, other platform guests, members of the press, our listening audience. Today, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning is here to speak to you about the formulation of the country's new National Development Plan. Following the civil crisis in 2012, the Unity Party-led government formulated a long-term national vision named Vision 2030, which seeks to transition the country from a least development status to a middle income status by 2030. The goals and aspirations of that vision were to be achieved through the implementation of a series of multi-years national development plans. The National Development Plan that the Unity Party Alliance government is in the process of preparing is the last opportunity we have to achieve the aspirations reflected in the Vision 2030, because the vision ends in 2030, and the new development plan will also coincide with that date. The main purpose of a national development plan is to provide a roadmap for achieving sustainable development, addressing challenges, and maximizing available resources in an integrated manner. The National Development Plan serves to guide as a guiding document for the government action, and it will provide a framework for the coordination among the various institutions and stakeholders. Preparation of this plan will involve multi-stakeholders approach encompassing extensive consultations with various groups such as civil society organizations, private sector representations, government institutions, youth and women participations, religious institutions, academia, physically challenged, etc. As you all are probably aware, the previous National Development Plan ended in 2023. That was the Pro-Poor Agenda for Prosperity and Development. The current government, upon its inauguration, announced its manifesto called ARREST, standing for Agriculture, Roads, Rule of Law, Education, Security, and Tourism. This new National Development Plan will be crafted concurrently with corresponding county development agendas and the public sector investment plans, and will ensure that we remain on track in the quest to realize the aspirations of the National Vision 2030. These plans in most respects will be guided by the 1986 Constitution and incorporates the priorities outlined in the Manifesto of the Unity Party, global and regional development frameworks such as the Sustainable Development Goals and the Africa Agenda 2063, etc. It will build on the gains made in key sectors, utilize key development, including reports, data from development partners, etc. A few years ago, a local government act was passed and is gradually being rolled out. With the implementation of the act, services will no longer be centralized as we are accustomed to, meaning counties will now have the opportunity to localize services to the citizens. Hence, the reintroduction of the county development agenda is very important. This calls for consultations at the sub-national levels where the views of stakeholders at district and county levels can be accessed and incorporated into the National Development Plan, the County Development Agenda, and the Public Sector Investment Plan. The modalities of the development of these plans were presented at a recently held cabinet retreat where His Excellency President Joseph Neyman Botha endorsed the roadmap and named the National Development Plan the ARREST Agenda for Inclusive Development, acronym AAID. Today, we will be joined by our partners, represented by Madam Christine Umotumi, Resident Coordinator for the United Nations System, Liberia, who also serves as the co-chairperson for the National Steering Committee for the AAID. Our partners have joined us in the development of our new National Development Plan. And we have invited Madam Amotomi to speak about some of the joint initiatives being coordinated under cross-supervision in collaboration with other development partners. We will also hear from the Assistant Minister for Development Planning, the Honorable Jerolinmek, who will elaborate more on the plan and the processes. That is, he will introduce in a brief context where we are, other activities that are in the pipeline, that we have enabled the government to complete and launch the AAID, scheduled to be done in October of 2024. So thank you. We'll entertain questions, I think, after all of the presentations that we made. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Christine Tanneh, the United Nations Resident Coordinator, as have been introduced by the Minister. Honorable Minister, for information, Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Assistant Ministers present, other senior government officials, members of the press. I think it's good afternoon now. So I really want to start by expressing our gratitude and thanks to the government of Liberia for the opportunity to join not only in this press briefing, but the entire national development processes and the accompanying country development agendas that are going to be developed, and actually in the implementation phase. I want to begin by congratulating Liberia. We stand here really happy about the peaceful nature of the elections that just happened, the deepening of democracy, because for us, development without peace is impossible, and then peace without development is unsustainable. So the rock and the building block of a consolidated peace and democracy is quite important, and really an example in the region. This is why I have to mention it. It is an important prerequisite, as I say, for national development and economic transformation. I also want to reiterate what the Deputy Minister Budget just said. The importance of the national planning process to guide the direction of the development of any country cannot be overemphasized. It's an important step to reap the dividends of peace. It is an important step to steer the direction that the country wants to take in its development and transformation. The UN and many partners really, we look to this plan to align our own support to the national vision. We come here with no any agenda at all. Our only agenda is to look at the national priorities, look at the national plan, and basically align our work in accompaniment to the government. I really want, from the bottom of my heart, to welcome and to thank the government leadership in this whole matter. The national leadership and ownership of this process is very, very critical. I hear all the time when your leaders speak about Live Liberia, Live Liberia, and Build Liberia. This is what's happening is for Liberia, and the partners are just here to accompany. We also want to thank the government for setting up the National Steering Committee, headed by His Excellency himself and the Vice President and Minister of Finance and Foreign Affairs. This is the leadership that most nations are looking for to steer the work of the nation. We are honored to be invited to co-chair, and in this regard, I really want to reiterate the deep appreciation to His Excellency Joseph Nimabwakai for nominating the resident coordinator of the UN as co-chair of this important steering committee. This is a testimony of the openness of Liberia and its people to partnership and collaboration, but all of which just accompany nationally led processes. I want to appreciate this leadership because the process of developing a national plan and sub-national plan becomes very critical when it is done by its own people. But also, at this point, I want to thank the government really for allowing this process to be consultative. The consultative nature of this process is truly a demonstration that the leadership wants everybody to have a voice in this plan, to say what they want for their own country, to be involved in the design, which will also create the momentum for being involved in the implementation. So we welcome the involvement of both national and international stakeholders because, as you know, the product out of such a consultation will be very, very rich. I want to emphasize that the process itself of consultation is as important as the product itself. Because through this conversation, this is where you forge a common purpose and you truly, build Liberia together. So I want to echo the government's call all the time to all of us development partners to ensure harmonization of effort and to ensure mutual accountability. The government is accountable to the people, and the partners are also accountable. And this kind of mutual accountability is critical, but also harmonizing our efforts and coordinating our efforts to accompany the development process is critical for better results. So on behalf of the UN family and the development partners, we really support the process. We're ready to be part of the steering committee in order to achieve its terms of references. We reaffirm the partners' commitment to continue to accompany this process through technical assistance and in any other way as requested by the nation. I want to, before I end, to say this process for Liberia, I think Madam Deputy Minister mentioned, it is happening at a critical time. You know that Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goal, the end mark is 2030. You also know that Liberia's own national vision, the end mark is 2030. It is 6 years to the both the ending point of these two processes. So it is critical for this government to accelerate action on Agenda 2030 and on its own vision. And so this process is coinciding with so many other countries who are grappling with how do we accelerate the achievement of the SDGs. So globally, some accelerators, or what they call transition, have been designed. Like globally, what do countries think might boost or accelerate action on SDGs? And this transition is very interesting, but when you look at them, they are very much aligned to arrest. You could think already arrest is leading the world, if I should say, because they talk about food systems, they talk about energy, digital connectivity, education, jobs, social protection, climate change, biodiversity, pollution, all of which are also priority. So it is a huge opportunity for Liberia to align itself with the global requirements and with the global processes. We are also having this at a time when we are planning for the Summit of the Future. The Summit of the Future will happen in September. The President of Liberia will be there. So discussions during this national planning process are going to give him a statement of what he's going to deliver to the world. So it is really combining so many processes. It's a process that is going to enrich the conversation of Liberia locally, but also its voice globally. So I want to really conclude by saying that the UN, the partners, the various partners, and you have various partners, I won't name all of them here, we are all behind the government, as behind the country as it leads its own next steps. And we are very hopeful, very hopeful that this is a truly Liberia moment and that the precursor for transformation, all the prerequisites are there because Liberians are committed to move their country forward. And thank you so much for inviting us again and also for this press conference held by the ministry, and wishing everybody, every Liberian, very successful work ahead. Maybe I should end by saying that God bless Liberia.
Resident coordinator,
Good afternoon, all. Piah, Madam RC, and my own boss, Madam Brunson. I would like to go strictly into business. Like my boss told you, my presentation will focus first on the context, then the preparatory activities we have initiated in preparation for the consultation both at the district and county levels, and also the national consultation and the formulation of the plan. So to put the plan in context, following our conflict in 2003, the then government of the late Jerolinmek formulated the results-focused transitional framework. That was a development plan that sought to transition the nation from conflict and emergency to stability. Then after that, when Madam Salif took over in 2006, it was when she first introduced the 150 days deliverable that we are now running with. Following the 150 days deliverable, then we developed the interim poverty reduction strategy paper, and that was interim because immediately after the conflict, we did not have the requisite data to inform policy decisions. So the government at the time thought that while we await to collect the relevant information or the relevant data to inform our national development plan, there was a need to formulate an interim development plan. So that was named the interim poverty reduction strategy. Following that, after the government was able to conduct a number of surveys to gather baseline data, then we formulated the first 5-year development plan, which was called as the poverty reduction strategy. That plan ended in 2012. Then the government, in her wisdom, thought that instead of just focusing on medium-term plan, there was a need to formulate a long-term vision. And in order to achieve the long-term vision, then we can have successive medium-term plan that will seek to achieve the vision. So in 2012, the Vision 2030 was launched, and it covered a period of 18 years. And in order to achieve the plan, there were then 3 successive 5-year military development plans. Now, Vision 2030 was built around 6 building blocks. 1 was economic prosperity. 2, we have social and demographic harmony. 3, we have democracy. 4, we have environmental sustainability. 5, we have cultural vibrancy. And 6, we have technological innovation. So following the launch of the vision, we formulated the first 5-year development plan, the agenda for transformation, which ran from 2012 to 2017. Then came the proposed agenda for prosperity and development, which came from 2018 to 2023. So the PFPD ended last year, June. And when this government took over, they now decided to formulate a new national development plan to run from 2024 to 2029. And this plan, the end of the new development plan coincides with the end of the vision. And as the UN resident coordinator said, the end of this new plan that we are in the process of developing will also coincide with the end of the Sustainable Development Goal. So, since we have this opportunity to prepare our last plan, that whose end will coincide with the end of our vision, then it means we have to take a deliberate approach to ensure that whatever plan we have will be implemented to enable Liberia to transition from a least developed country status to a middle income country status. Even if we are not able to get there because of structural challenges, but we should be closer to achieving that status. So as we go to develop this plan, in the midst of numerous developmental challenges, we will be developing a plan using the integrated sector-based approach, wherein we will have 2 to 3 sectors whose intervention or whose programs have synergy with one another to be grouped and make sure that intervention will be funded based on that. Apart from that, we all know that over the last few years, the domestic economy has been challenged to mobilize sufficient revenue to implement our plans. So this time around, we are going to look for some innovative financing mechanism, including the issue of the green, the carbon market, the green bond, and even encouraging public-private partnership. Because like the government said, one of the priorities is road construction. Given the size of our envelope, our resource envelope, and over the next 5 years, if, for example, the government wants to pave, say, up to 1,000 miles or 1,000 kilometers of road, we cannot depend on domestic resources alone. Our partners have been assisting us in the form of aid and grant, aid and loan, but given that we are also part of the IMF arrangement, our capacity to borrow sufficient funds to fill in the resource gap is constrained. So then that calls for us looking for innovative ways to be able to finance our new national development plan. So we'll be bringing on the public-private partnership concept. Now, the United Party and Alliance government came up with their manifesto, the Arrest Manifesto. We also have the 11 budget sectors. So what we thought to do is to align the government manifesto to our existing 11 budget sector. So for example, agriculture is aligned to the agriculture sector in our own budget sector. It is also aligned to the energy and environment sector, as well as commerce and industry sector. Now, why is the agriculture sector in the arrest aligned to the other two sectors, for example, energy and environment? Because the way we do our farming has implication for the environment. So in that plan, we'll be advocating for climate smart agriculture, encouraging farmers to use low land as well as some level of high level. Secondly, industry and commerce. We don't want to look at agriculture now as subsistence farming. We want to commercialize farming. So in order to do that, it means we'll be aligning agriculture to commerce and industry sector. Then we have the roads. Of course, roads are aligned to infrastructure and basic services and also in environment, energy environment sector. The way we construct our roads has implications for our environment. If we do not include commerce, if we do not use a right mix of materials needed for a durable road, we may be affecting the environment. People who are along there, they may suffer from flooding and other things. Then we have the rule of law, which is also aligned to the security and rule of law sector among the budget sector. The rule of law is also aligned with the local and municipal government sector. Now, my boss, the Deputy Minister for Budget, told you that the government has enacted the Local Government Act. And so, administration at the county, services at the county now will be devolved to carry services closer to our people. So, the rule of law is aligned to the municipal government sector. Is also aligned to public administration and transparency and accountability sector. Then we have education, which is aligned to the education sector. Is also aligned to social development services sector. Then we have health and sanitation sector, which is aligned to health, energy, environment, and municipal government sector. Then the last sector, which is tourism, is aligned to industry and commerce, energy, environment, and the agriculture sector. Now, why is tourism aligned with energy environment sector? It is because if we want to promote tourism in our country, we have to be prepared to preserve some of our forests to enable tourists to be able to go there and see the beauty of the animal species that we have. And also, we also want to introduce agro-tourism, where investors can design their farm in a way that it will attract tourists. And let me be quick to say the arrest sector are all aligned to the 6 building blocks of our Vision 2030. Now, the process of developing our national development plan. So we divided the process into 3 stages. The first stage is planning and urbanizing. The second stage is national and subnational stakeholder engagement. And the last stage is formulating the national development plan and its accompanying plan. What we have done, we identify stakeholders to participate in the process. Like the UNRC said, we bear holding a number of engagement with the UN partner to see how best they can assist us in terms of financial, technical, and logistical support. And they are very forthcoming on that. We also will include civil society organizations, the private sector, representatives from the different civil society organizations within the counties and the district. We'll be looking at government institutions. Today we have about 107 government institutions. So they all will be involved. We'll be looking at youth organizations, women organizations, religious institutions, academia, including the different universities around here, even fly and Linsu, then of course the physically challenged. This process has to be inclusive and collaborative because we want all stakeholders to own the process. So after identifying our stakeholders, we build collaboration. As a result of building this collaboration, we were able to launch the joint UN and the joint government library UN technical team about a month or so ago at the Ministry of Finance. The next thing we did, because of the time limitation in which we have to deliver this plan, we requested the PBCC for no objection to do restricted bidding because we do not want the bidding process to go for up to one month. So the no objection has been granted, and recruitment of 2 consultancy firms are in the advanced stage. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks or so, we will be reviewing their technical and financial proposals and selecting the 2 best firms to work along with us to deliver the 3 plans that we talked about. We are also in the process of procuring the requisite logistics, including vehicles. And the President, His Excellency, on Saturday endorsed the roadmap for the preparation of the National Development Plan at the close of the just ended cabinet retreat. And at that retreat, he named the different coordination committees, which I will do later on. So the concept note and roadmap, as I said, were adopted by the cabinet. We engaged the existing ministers from the sector, the 11 budget sector lead institutions to build that collaboration, because as we move forward, we want all the institutions to be on board in the process. We have set up different days to engage other stakeholders. For example, we'll be conducting orientation for local county officials from June 6 to 7 in Ganta City, where we'll bring all the local county officials from the 15 counties to bring them up to speed on the process relating to developing the National Development Plan, and also clearly tell them their roles and responsibility in the process and the level of cooperation and collaboration that we expect from them as we'll be sending our teams into the 15 counties. Then of course, we have planned orientation for the 11 budget sectors, and that orientation will take place from June 11 to 12, 2022. That will be held in Monrovia. We also have planned to engage the legislature, and that will be done June 14th, and the judiciary will be done on the 15th of June. Now we are hoping that as soon as we hire the 2 consultancy firms, the President will launch the consultation process anywhere between June 17 to the 24th, 2024. Following that official launch of the consultation process, our team will move into the 15 counties. Now, we will be doing district consultations, county consultation, district validation, because I will complete the consultation and the technicians work along, our technicians work along with the consultancy firm to develop the draft report. We will have to take it back to the county stakeholders to present the draft to them and ask them whether their aspirations were thoroughly reflected in their county development agenda. And we also have the national consultation to bring stakeholders, and national validation to bring stakeholders together to present the draft of the National Development Plan to them. The draft of the National Development Plan to them for validation. So the consultation is expected to last for 35 days, and as my boss said, the process of developing the plan, we are expected to end on the 30th of September. But we are going to formulate this plan, realizing that there may be a number of challenges, including the current weather. And also, we will also be preparing the plan as we'll be preparing the 2025 budget. So then it means we have to double our sleeves to ensure that we can meet the timeline. So let me just go quickly to naming the different committees. So the steering committee, as my boss said, will be chaired by the president, will be co-chaired by the UN resident coordinator. The finance minister will serve as secretary, and members will include the arrest sector lead, which include agriculture minister, public works minister, justice minister, education minister, health minister, minister of culture, minister of information, culture and tourism, and internal affairs. Then other members will include the civil society council of Liberia, the private sector representative, development partners as well. Then we have the National Coordination Committee, which will be chaired by the finance minister, and we'll have two co-chairs. The first co-chair will be one representative from the UN system. The second representative will be the Deputy Minister for Budget and Development Planning, and the secretary will be the Assistant Minister for Development Planning, and we'll have members such as agriculture, commerce, industry, education, general, children, health, internal affairs, justice, mines and energy, public works, information, culture and tourism, governance commission, CSA, Liberia Institute for Statistics and Geoinformation Services. Then of course we have the technical coordination team that will coordinate the actual technical work. That committee will be chaired by the Assistant Minister for Development Planning and will be co-chaired by a representative from the Development Partner Institution, and will be the secretary will be the Director of Plan Coordination, and this committee will include all existing ministers and equivalent from the different ministries and agencies. Then we have the intersectoral committee that will be chaired by the sector lead, the 11 budget sector lead, and we'll have development partners as co-lead, civil society organization, we have private sector, Federation of Liberian Youth, and LINSU. Then of course the national facilitation team and the county facilitation team. The county facilitation team will be chaired by the county development officer, because consistent with the Local Government Act, the county development officer is supposed to lead on the development of their respective county. So Ministry of Finance technician will be only provided support. So I thank you, and we await your question.
So sometimes the platform of the ministry comes with some political elements, and we do now want to draw the UN into such. So we take the questions from their presentation, and after which we allow the UN resident coordinator to leave before the representative of the ministry presents. So that if some of the things you may say will be crossing some political lines, the resident coordinator is not called into. So take the questions.
Remove the first questions, please, for the group. Your name and introduction, you ready?
My name is George Lumo, and I'm with KCTV. So my question to the UN resident coordinator. So you talk about the sustainable development goal. So I want to know what have been your goal as partner to the government, working from one government to another, supporting their agenda. And the fact that we are sliding gradually towards 2030, what can you say in terms of achievability relative to the indicator set for 2030?
Good afternoon, my name is Piah. I work for sitting newspaper, the New Liberian newspaper. I have two questions, one for the Ministry of Finance and one for the Ambassador. The first question will go to the Ministry of Finance. You're talking about national development agenda or plan for the country. Every government that comes, we hear about a national development plan. You name some of them, we talk about the PAP, SPAS, we talk about the Vision 2030. Now we are talking about the EAID. My question to you is, what's the major difference as government change and then you come with a lot of different plan of national development agenda? How inclusive is that beyond the national development agenda? My second question goes to the UN President Coordinator, Ambassador Christine. Ambassador Christine, all the time, development partners of Liberia will always do development in Liberia, not directly involved with the government itself, as was said by the president himself during the retreat, that sometimes development partners come and do all the development, bring the money, but normally you see expatriates or consultants on the board will come, carry back that money. And when you talk about development, you also look at human capacity. You also look at human capacity. So instead of having a plan where Liberians are not totally involved in what the development partners do, how are you taking to work on this in this new achievement plan that the government has set? Thank you.
Go first. Bring your gadgets on the
Please come with your gadgets on the platform.
Bring your gadget on the platform. Yes, you can come on the platform. Please look up.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me clearly. In terms of supporting the country, as I already said, most of the partners, UN inclusive, we do design a cooperation and partnership framework with the country. But to design that, we always align with the country's priorities and what they want to achieve. Now, the work in these countries also goes by the phases through which the country is going. You know, sometimes it's during crisis and the focus is on crisis, or peace building and the focus is to stop the crisis and build the peace, and or sometimes it is in peacetime and the focus is on development and moving forward. So the UN has been in this country in all those phases of Liberia, and we are also happy to be here now as really the focus is going into transformation in these last years of the vision. So about the, and I should say there has been quite a lot of partnership and support. Of course, I need to mention that the primary responsible for development is the nation itself and its people. As I said, as partners will come accompany the process. So the possibility of achieving the SDGs actually globally, I don't think there's one country that can say that they have achieved, or most countries from the global consolidation, most countries are behind. So that's why in the last summit in September 2023, during the SDG summit, and Liberia was represented at the highest level, countries presented their status, and that's where the acceleration plan and the 6 areas to focus on to try and accelerate were designed in coordination with all the member states that have come. So that's why I mentioned that there is this whole drive to see maybe if countries focus on food systems, focus on energy, digital transformation, education, job, social protection, climate change, biodiversity and pollution. Maybe they may not be the only ones, but they think these are big push that the countries can align with to see. Of course, each country will work on its own local context. And for example, that's why this planning process is so critical to see for Liberia, where do you seek in this? What are the key things that you think will accelerate this achievement of the SDGs? Now, development partners sometimes come, do the work, and you know, how does Liberia get involved, and all this kind of talk. As I said, the UN involvement in country business actually evolves with the country's involvement. You will realize that when a country is in deep crisis, say if it is in war, sometimes the UN is all over the place, sometimes in missions, sometimes in what, to just help, you know, calm the situation. But in peace building and in development, the UN and partners really take simply a supporting role and lead the government to move forward. So for example, that's why in this particular moment, even when we start for the elections, for example, the government and the country, the nation were completely in the lead, and you did not see any flying UN helicopters or anywhere doing whatever. No, the country's job, and all who were here, some technical assistance maybe, but country leading its own process and leading its own results. Same with the development plans. That's why you see government in the lead, president taking the lead in designing what Liberia feels will be the next development agenda. And whether UN or other partners just playing a supporting role, but not really, we cannot, and it's not even possible, I think, for anyone to come and present a plan to you, or it wouldn't work, it won't work. So that's why in my opening remarks, I really thanked this government and the people of Liberia for taking charge of their destiny, and really for proving to all of us that you are assuming that responsibility of living Liberia, loving Liberia, and building Liberia. And we are only here to accompany this process. Thank you so much.
So I will take your question on what the major difference between the National Development Plan that we are in the process of formulating and past plans. There are a few. One, for example, the PAPD consultation was only done at the county level, and we did not include consultation at the district level. The second thing, past development plans, they look at sectoral planning in silos. Sectors went into their sector working group and planned with all that coordination between and amongst the other sectors, because we know that the outcome of one sector may have serious positive impact on what happens in the other sector, for example, agriculture. So if the infrastructure sector is talking about constructing roads and they want to do community roads and farm to market roads, it's better for us to bring the infrastructure sector and the agriculture sector together so that both can identify the farm to market road that will be relevant to give that desired output. So we'll be looking at the integrated sectoral-based approach to development planning. Also, past development plans have been wish lists. Technicians go into the field, stakeholders gave a number of lists, and there was no sequencing. So this time around, we are cognizant that resources are limited. The government does not have the capacity to generate sufficient revenue to finance all the plans. So what we'll be doing sequencing of the plan into the 5 years. So if we have a list of priorities that will go into the plan, we ask stakeholders work along with them and say, of these priorities, what are those ones that you want to implement during the first year? What are those ones you want to implement during the second year, third, fourth, and fifth year? And even at that, we go back to them and say, you said you wanted to implement, for example, 10 programs in the first year, but can you rank them in order of preference? In the event that we do not have sufficient funding, the program that in the first year will be the one we will fund, then we can come and fund the next program and other programs. The third difference is that there was no innovative financing mechanism like involving public-private partnership, because the private sector has opportunity to raise sufficient capital to invest. So we think by doing that, we will have additional funding to be able to implement government programs. And lastly, two more, we are going to conduct online surveys for the diaspora Liberians and Liberians that may not have the opportunity of being selected to form part of the consultation. So we'll send the form online. You can just click online, fill in your form, tell us what your aspirations are, just as the diaspora Liberians. So we know that their roles are very critical in what happens in Liberia from the just and the election. So we also want to incorporate their aspirations into our plan. And lastly, the kind of collaboration that we have between the government of Liberia and our development partners. And that is demonstrated by the presence of the UN resident coordinator here. So this plan is going to be a bit different, but we are not going to trash all other plans away. As I speak now, my technicians are reviewing the different plans to identify the successes, to identify the gaps, then we can now propose ways of addressing some of the gaps.
All right. We left plenty of politics and serious matters. If we have made political presentations here, the line will be long. Who want to ask questions? Only 2 questions were waiting for questions. Maybe after Martin Yemblu speaks, you have a lot of questions to ask. Madam Coordinator, thank you for coming. Can you start?
This is Focus on Liberia. Morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And we are on the ground in the press room of the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism.
We want to
My name is
continue on this note to announce that President Walker has constituted a committee on rights to ensure the stability of the country's staple food. And that committee will formulate policies to ensure constant and steady supply of rice in the country, and they will formulate a strategy for accelerated local production of rice and for import substitution. And those appointed to that committee include Ambassador Charles Minor, who will serve as chairman, David Vinton is a member, and Tanneh Toure Kaba. Other members of the committee include the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, FUTA Corporation, National Food Authority, Liberia Business Association, Liberia Marketing Association, National Transport Union of Liberia, Liberia Bankers Association, the National Civil Society Council of Liberia, and the Rural Women Organization. So this is a committee that the President has set up to deal with the challenges Liberia currently faces with our staple food. We also want to announce that the new Liberia has returned to the news stand as of today, and it's going to be so regularly Monday, Wednesday, Friday These people has been up to stand for like five months, so we are happy to announce that the team at the ministry, headed by the Deputy Minister for Technical Services, we have brought back the new Liberia to the mission. We also want to announce, hopefully, that there will be some trouble with internet connectivity in Liberia. Starting maybe now or tonight.
12 to 10.
12 to 10 tomorrow morning. Customers of Orange will experience about 40% outage and 60% will be on. Lone Star subscribers or their customers will experience about 60% outage and about 40% will be on. For the rest of the service provider could be down, including the telco, except electroshock, which is a new business. They may have about 50% up and 50% down. The cable consortium, that team that manages the connectivity, they're going to start to remedy that situation from tonight, from midnight tonight to tomorrow morning, 10 p.m. So we're hoping that in a short time services will be restored fully. But it's not going to be as it was, a couple of weeks back when we faced total outage. This is going to be like a minor disruption to internet connectivity. So if you're experiencing that, that's the reason. There are a couple of issues we want to talk about very quickly. Our attention is drawn to a group of, we would describe them as, I don't know whether they're confused or they failed. Maybe they're a group of boys club. We understand that they are reported to have said that the country is currently fast declining under the Piah administration. And those boys usually do not deserve the attention of the government and of the ministry, and they usually do not deserve our response. But we have to respond, and it's because we want to set the record straight. Contrary to their loose and baseless talks, Liberia was rescued from their evil empire and the country is currently on a path to prosperity. Maybe we want to remind, I know we'll say the Evil Boys Club, as to what it means for a country to fast decline during the governance process. Under their reign of terror, we're just going to list a few classic examples of what it means for the nation to be in massive decline. So for example, a nation is in decline when their president built 47 condominiums for himself in the first 100 days of their administration. That's what decline is. When an appointed minister of state, their appointed minister of state, in the first week of being appointed, bought a $350,000 house in this country. You don't need to mention the name of that minister, but that's just a classic example of what it means for a nation to be in decline. When their president demolished his dilapidated 9th Street home and replaced it with a mansion worth millions of dollars in the first 100 days. That is what it means when a nation is in decline. When our nation's international friends describe their government as kleptocratic, that is what it means when a nation is in decline. When 16 billion, we all know the story, 16 billion printed Liberian currency disappeared in broad daylight, and we do not know up to now what happened. That is a classic example of what a nation that is in decline, that is what it is. When leaders of their administration are sanctioned or were sanctioned right and left for corruption and killing, other forms of human rights abuses, that is what it means if a nation is in decline. When their government stole partners' money from the Central Bank of Liberia and they were openly rebuked. We all remember what happened when U.S. The United States government and EU representatives and other partners cried about their money that was deposited at the Central Bank of Liberia being taken away by their government. That is a classic example of what it means if a nation is in decline. When radio stations of critics or perceived critics of their president at the time were attacked as enemies of the state and they were shut down unceremoniously, that is a classic example when a nation is in decline. Those are the indicators, those are the action that you see happening. Or when a government refuses to allow a radio station to open, even though that station has made all these